समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Why has IndiGo been allowed the exceptionalism that it has been? This question must be asked after scenes of chaos played out at airports across India. Some truly heartbreaking scenes. Families trying to get to a sick relative or somebody who had died in their family. People trying to get to a wedding celebration. A couple who had to attend a wedding ceremony their own virtually because nobody could reach them. But the larger question, and this is the point that all of us need to understand, is that this exceptionalism shown by the government for one private airline goes right to the heart of the safety and security of us, you and me. Do we not want rested pilots? Isn't that germane to flight safety? Why then has IndiGo been allowed to not meet basic global standards? IndiGo had 2 years to prepare for these standards, and yet, after the collapse of its services across India, the government appeared to roll back the demand that IndiGo joins other airlines to meet these standards. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we look at what is clearly blackmail or arm twisting of the government by one private airline. Is it using its domination of the sector, the domestic airline sector, to basically blackmail the government? What other explanation can there be for the fact that IndiGo had 2 years to meet basic global norms? The other airlines did it. They did not ask for any special dispensation. IndiGo did not. What is this all about? It's about a stipulated rest time for those who are flying our planes, for the pilots. This is a direct safety issue. This is the way to understand IndiGo and the furor around it. This isn't just about delayed or cancelled flights and the cancellations that we have seen across airports. This isn't about temporary discomfort. This is about whether you and I are safe when we board the next flight. Pilots who are rested are critical to airline safety, and yet IndiGo has been allowed, presumably only because it cares about its profit and its bottom line, to get away with not meeting these global norms. Why is this happening? This doesn't, in my opinion, pass the smell test. And it's also very important to understand, as I keep saying again and again, this is not a technical debate. This is not a debate about temporary discomfort or cancellations. This is not an aviation conversation. This is a flight safety conversation. I want to introduce our guest today as we look at this arm twisting by IndiGo of the government, and we have to wonder why the government gave in. Perhaps the scenes at the airport created too much public anger for the government to do anything but. Joining me is Captain Sam Thomas. He, of course, leads one of the big pilots associations in India. He's the president of the Airline Pilots Association of India, otherwise known as ALPA. Good to see you, sir. Sherbir Panag is with us. He's one of the country's foremost lawyers. If you aren't following him on social media, please follow him on X. He has some very, very incisive comments on this entire chaos. And also joining me is Captain Amit Singh. Captain Singh is, of course, the founder of the Safety Matters Foundation. He's already in court after the Air India 171 crash. And I'm again stressing what we have seen unfold is a direct flight safety issue. And until the public understands it in those terms, we'll be looking at this as something that, oh, experts ko samajh aata hai. No, this is about the safety of you and me when we board our next flight. That is what it's about. Now, Captain Thomas, explain simply to people who are not aviation followers, what was IndiGo asked to do? Other airlines were able to do it. IndiGo refused to do it. presumably, and I have to presume here, because it wanted a bigger profit.
Ma'am, good evening. In your opening, you've covered it almost perfectly. Now, as far as what IndiGo was asked to do was implement a very simple flight duty time limitation, which was not exclusive to IndiGo, it was to all airlines, and it was based on something called the fatigue risk management system. By no means is this giving so much of rest to pilots or anything like that. It's just scratching the bottom of the barrel. It's just bare basics. And we at Alpa India would like to first inform people that this is a bogey. A person with an intellect of the fifth standard student can figure out how many pilots you need. And when you raise these rest periods, so-called rest periods by 12 hours, and the number of landings, all the arguments that you need 15% more pilots are complete rubbish. You sit with us and we will work out the numbers and give it to you. We've been on both sides of the coin, and we've been in the aviation industry for 31 years. We've run airlines. We do run it now. So to say that these FDTL is the one causing these problems is farthest from the truth. The second point is there is a distinct lack of accountability at all fronts. An IndiGo airline and the criminals within IndiGo can get away with whatever they want. And it is the same honorable Minister of Civil Aviation who said on the floor of the parliament that we are not short of pilots. 2 months down the line, you've cancelled 1,200 flights. That means you don't have any pilots. We have tremendous goodwill among pilots simply because we've been around for long, and most of the pilots flying today are either trained by me or by my peers. So we get straight information in real time. There have been pilots standing in dispatch being asked not to go to aircraft. Having said all that, this, we believe, was an engineered act just to pressurize the DGCA, but it went out of hand because there was a little bit of a technical glitch in Pune, and that had a cascading effect. There was also the ILAC 2 upgrade that was happening. I don't want to sound too technical. It was something that was engineered by IndiGo, and it went out of hand and resulted in the chaos that we see today. And the poor passengers, my heart also goes out to those poor ground staff who are there. They are not informed of what is happening. They are just pushed in front, while the criminals who enacted this entire drama are having Garba party and Christmas parties at various locations.
You used a phrase before I opened this up, criminals within IndiGo. This is the phrase
Correct.
you've used, Captain Thomas.
Absolutely, yes.
And because I know you're not given normally to hyperbole, what do you mean by criminals within IndiGo?
They are not limited to IndiGo because we've been on both sides of the curtain. And what let me just remind our viewers that in the massacre at Jallianwala Bagh, there were only 3 British officers. It was a number of Indians who fired the bullets. Similarly, in airlines and in corporates, you put a foreigner on the top for the acoustics and the looks, and then hire a couple of Indians who will stop at nothing to exploit the other Indians. As bad as it sounds, this is corporate India, and IndiGo is a complete out and out corporate airline. They do not believe that they're accountable to anybody, and the record shows that they've been able to browbeat everybody, DGCA, Ministry, Government of India, into whatever they want. It's there in writing, and this is what you saw. Nothing for the passenger. And I can say for my community, what rule am I following today? What am I flying under today? I don't know whether I'm flying under AIC 28 of 1992, Car Section 7 of 2007 or 2019, or you've held this in abeyance. I don't know what rules I'm following.
Yeah.
So,
Captain Amit Singh, because you are focusing all the time on flight safety, Can you please explain to our audience and people at large? This is a safety issue. This is not an esoteric debate. It relates directly to how rested pilots are when they fly the plane. We are a country scarred by a crash, the reasons of which we may not know, though people like you are pushing for the truth. People like Captain Sumit Sabharwal's father is in court pushing for the truth. As you know, I had the occasion to meet him and interview him. It was heartbreaking. Do we want more heartbreaks? I think that is what we're not explaining to people, that this failure by Indigo to meet global norms on rest times for pilots is a flight safety issue. In a year that this country has suffered a horrific crash, how are we accepting this?
Globally, if you talk about fatigue, so one of the cases which props up every time is the Mangalore crash. And fatigue was one of the contributing factors in it. It was highlighted in the report. There were recommendations. There was a ZADI committee after that, which also recommended implementation of fatigue risk management system. And till ICAO formulated the regulations, the committee said DGCA should start training their officers on fatigue management back in 2011. Till date, nothing has happened. In 2013, when I was head of operations in AirAsia, I introduced fatigue risk management as an option. But at that time, DGCA kind of laughed it off. They said, "You're too futuristic. This won't run in India, all these things. We go by the old system which Indian Airlines follows. That is a pad and a paper, and you make the roster." So this is the mindset of our regulators. But now suddenly the airlines want to implement FRMS. Why? Because they want to squeeze more out of the pilots. But
Can you
there is
explain
a
this
method to it.
acronym? Can you explain the acronym
Fatigue
you just
risk
used?
management system. So there are two types of fatigue management policies. One is the prescriptive, which means you can fly 13 hours or 14 hours. By night, you can fly 10 hours. So that is prescribed. But fatigue risk management is a kind of a flexible system in which you can fly beyond the 10 hours or 13 hours, provided you do a risk assessment of where you are flying, at under what conditions are you flying, how much rest have you given before and after the flight. So you can basically stretch the flying duties to a flexible in a flexible manner. So if, for example, you're flying from Delhi to Singapore, and or say Delhi to Adelaide, and in one flight duty you cannot complete the flight, you will need to carry extra crew. In fatigue risk management, the same crew can operate a longer flight, but provided you give additional rest and make sure that the flight is during the day, not at night, etc., etc. So you have to do a proper risk assessment. So what DGCA proposed in September, through a circular, they wanted to implement this fatigue management system. So it is not as simple as a circular is issued to provide extra guidance on how to implement a policy. A regulation cannot be made on the basis of a circular. Regulations are made, drafted, then they are put out for public comments for 30 days. Then public comments are either accepted, rejected, then they are implemented. So they wanted a shortcut method, and every airline was working for an implementation date in December. So that is what the target was. In December, they were expecting that the number of hours will increase. That didn't happen, and thanks to SAM and FIP. So they put forth that this is not the way things should be run. And the fatigue is, if for the viewers, it is a science. So it is not just 4 people sitting in a room and taking decisions that it should be 10 hours or 11 hours. It is a science. Back in 1996, NASA said the maximum flight duty period is 10 hours. In 2008, 2016, the Europeans, they formed a committee of 13 specialist doctors in neurology, cardiology, etc. They said maximum is 10 hours. But the Europeans went to 13 hours. and they gave it in writing that 13 hours against scientific norms. But the Europeans said that we will manage the risk with additional rest. Indian flight duty time limitation has no science. There is nothing called science in it. It is all ad hocism. Like Sam said, now we don't know. We're following A, B, C, which one? So by
Yeah,
saying that it's
and I think
safe,
I think what the larger public needs to understand, sorry to cut it short, let me bring in Sherbir at this point, is that this is about our safety. And this is also about one entity, one private corporate entity being able to circumvent norms that it had 2 years to implement. And the only reason that it has not implemented it, one has to presume here, is wanting a higher profit margin. Sherbir. Sherbir, can you unmute yourself? I can't hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, Barkha. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I couldn't agree more with what you've just said. In fact, I've been crying horse on Twitter, X, and also on other debates that I've been on, that this is a flight safety issue. This isn't an issue of pilots refusing to come to work. This isn't an issue of regulatory of unimplementable regulations, and this isn't court mandated. This is a flight safety issue. Let's break this down into four distinct parts. First and foremost, I think, as Captain Amit Singh has very rightly pointed out, we were late to the junket or late to the rodeo, and the FDTL norms only came out. The discussion started. The circular came out in early 2024 with an implementation date for mid 2024. Mind you, we were late even back then, and we don't meet standards as compared to most other countries. After this came in, as the country's largest airline with over 60% market share, rather than playing a leadership role towards flight safety, there was obfuscation and scuttling and fighting and bickering and absolutely nothing that was constructively done in this regard. And through consistent and concerted efforts, this got pushed down by another year, and not by almost 18 months rather. And now we come to November. So so first things first, this is not court mandated as some handles pro IndiGo have tried to say. This wasn't courts overstepping, and this isn't a judiciary versus executive debate. The regulator, who is the specialist in this matter, framed the norms. Private airlines challenged those norms. Everybody else fell in line except for IndiGo. And then when this crisis mounted, we've all got to appreciate the multiple facets to this. IndiGo has rostering norms that are unheard of anywhere else in the world. A crew member will be coming in from somewhere else and busting their flight duty limits. You'll have a co-pilot joining in from somewhere else, and then you'll have a captain flying with a different crew. So there are multiple other points through which their flights also get delayed, because there is only one focus there, which is to maximize and juice out the most they can from their staff. There are ground staff unable to disembark and embark passengers, due to which flights are getting delayed. So everything is coming together, and it's not just the pilot's fault. I don't carry a brief for any of the pilots, mind you, on this particular matter. All said and done, this issue is of flight safety, and for the DGCA to do a U-turn on flight safety, as in, is a wedding more important than flight safety? Is the holiday season more important? What kind of equivalence can we draw between an airline that couldn't figure out? Yesterday, I heard Vishnu Som of NDTV say that the total net shortage of pilots was going to boil down to 100 pilots. As in, expats could have been hired if they had to be, if even for a moment they don't want to believe what Captain Sam Thomas is saying about the fact that the rostering could be done more efficiently. Let's for a moment assume Captain Sam Thomas is completely and entirely wrong, and let's discredit his experience, which IndiGo seems to be doing. Even if expats had to be brought in, there was significant several months at play, and they couldn't do that. As in, you cumulatively take the salary package of 100 commanders and get them in. It would be pocket change and a speeding ticket in the scheme of one large aviation accident that would take place. And for an airline that has the future, that's picking up an aircraft faster than anybody else does, that virtually owns the Airbus production line, how could they be so myopic in their view? And that's where I think it pains all of us. None of us are against them maximizing profits. Absolutely, they should. That's the job of a company, and a company has no other job. If anybody doesn't want maximization of profits, we should go and donate to NGOs. It's their job to maximize profits, but there are rules and guardrails. And in this particular instance, they made the wrong choice. And to the extent it's orchestrated or not, I think it definitely reeks of poor management, and it definitely reeks of a hostage crisis. And nothing could be worse than the government caving in on this particular topic.
And when you say hostage crisis, elaborate on that.
Barkha, the aviation is critical to our economic growth, and not just social mobility. It's one of the it's a critical component of our economic growth. We are able to connect all major Indian commercial cities in under 2 hours. That's a significant economic advantage. Just look at the United States as compared to us. Here we have flights not operating, airports shutting down, additional CISF personnel being deployed on account of unruly behavior that is emerging on account of how people are what they are faced with. We are yet for the fog season to really kick in. We have a holiday season and a wedding season at play. As in, here is an airline saying nothing can be done. The only solution to all of this is to make our pilots fly more, is to make them do more night landings against their circadian rhythm, is to ensure that a fatigue-based disaster takes place. That can't be the only solution, as in that's just illogical beyond words.
What next, Captain Amit Singh? If this is a safety issue, should pilots, at this point, use forums like ALPA to say we won't do it? Because eventually the pushback has to come from the pilots. Or are people worried, frankly, about losing their jobs? I mean, frankly, this demand for greater safety norms has to come from the flying public. That's point one. Point two, it is 100% a flight safety issue, but there is also something so unethical about one private entity being able to arm twist the government on a policy that other airlines have implemented.
So, as I said, this fatigue risk management system was their plan A. That did not happen. So, they decided to show the government that if you do not give in to our demands, this is the consequence. So, the government is down on their knees. The DGCA, basically, you're saying the DGCA is mewing and IndiGo is roaring. In the middle of it, the number of cancellations started increasing. As Sam is saying, the pilots are sitting doing nothing. Everybody's hearing of it. But who is doing the investigation? DGCA is investigating. How can DGCA investigate themselves? Their issues. Where is the Competition Commission of India coming in for abuse of dominant power? And there is another big angle to it. That is the training. The common thing is shortage. How is the shortage important? Is training. You know how big the training industry is. Recently, I think a couple of weeks back, it's all about the timing. A couple of weeks back, the Minister of Civil Aviation gave a statement that in the next 15 to 20 years, we'll need about 30,000 pilots. 30,000 pilots. Now, around the same time or a month before, there was a push from IndiGo to implement a new type of commercial pilot training, which is called multi-crew pilot, which will reduce the number of hours on flying, actual flying, and more on simulators. So if the pilot does 200 hours, so the pilot will do about 60 hours on actual flying, and 140 will shift to simulators. And to train these 15,000 pilots, the cost is calculated around 2 lakh crores in the next 15 years, 13,000 crores per year. And surprisingly, November end, I think Adani takes over FSTC. So you see a big market of 2 lakh crores, and IndiGo is pushing for that new type of license, which will require more simulator training. And the shortage is perpetuated, that there is a shortage. So the public sentiment, public is hearing there's a shortage. And if somebody comes in and says, I'll solve your shortage by establishing more simulators or training academies and everything, So that
Well,
goes in line.
the
So that
Captain
is a
Amit, as Sherbir said, before they train other pilots or new pilots, all they had to do, if they were short on pilots to implement these safety norms, was to hire 100 expat pilots on contracts, on
even
temporary
if you
contracts, and it
hire,
would have been pocket change for them.
yeah, 100 pilots is nothing. Indian Airlines has been operating with a shortage of 100 pilots for so many years. But what I
Yeah.
can't understand is by 10th of February, how will they get 100 pilots? From where will they get 100 pilots, 100 captains? The
Captain
rosters are not
Thomas,
made.
yeah,
The
sorry,
rosters are
Captain
made.
Thomas,
Yeah.
what are the options for ALPA now? What are the options for the pilot associations? Are the pilots going to come together as Federation of Pilots, your association? You know, what is going to happen now? Because what concerns me is what Sherbir said, that this is a flight safety issue. It's an issue of one private entity being able to get exceptionalism for itself on something as sensitive and big as airline safety in a year that we've seen a crash.
Ma'am, in my earlier statement, I did use the term criminals and criminality. On 24th of November, we had a meeting with DGCA where I used the term gunda, because what we are missing out is what the general public doesn't know is that there is a rostering and scheduling departments. These are criminals. They are proven criminals. I have worked with them. I have supervised them, and I know in and out of them. Now, anytime a law is promulgated, these people tend to sit, have a meeting, and work on loopholes. The other part is there are two, just before getting too technical about it, there is a flight duty time and there is a flight time. For simplicity's sake, flight time is what you actually fly, and flight duty is what you undergo while operating this flight time. These rostering and scheduling people who are incompetent, they don't know, they are underqualified. To be fair to them, there is no college in India or institution that brings out rostering and scheduling degrees or anything like that. It's just a clerk who goes up the ladder and he starts forming this. Now, to give you an example, the rule was that you can do 2 landings at night. Now, I wonder who is doing more than 2 landings at night. Your eyes are burning. This is India. You fly from Guwahati to Jodhpur. You're flying 2 different this one. Then you do a flight to Madurai or something like that. The stress on the pilots is tremendous. We can't begin to explain to you what the problem is. People think that these are highly paid. Incidentally, we are not even highly paid. We are the lowest paid in the world. Ethiopia, Rwanda, African countries pay more than what we are being paid here. We are also prevented from going out. This is a collusion between everybody who is present today. And that is the reason we had a meeting yesterday with the Honorable Minister who said, please, I need your cooperation. How can we cooperate? I mean, with our lives. I mean, if I was such a brave person, I would have joined the Indian Air Force. I couldn't do that because I wanted to fly in the civilian domain. And I have not signed my life to you. I'm just here to fly your airplane safely from point A to point B. For that, the world
And
recognized.
not just have you not signed out your life to the government or to a company, the flying public has the right to safety. Flight
Absolutely.
safety is a public issue. I think what we have to
This is
understand, Sherbir, if I may bring you in, what we have to understand is that this is not a face-off between a private company and the government. This is something that impacts us all. You know, I interviewed the Air India 171 pilot, Sumit Sabharwal's father, and through tears, he said to me, he said, this isn't about my son. It's also about you. Don't you want to know what caused the crash? Don't you want to feel safer? And I'm joining that to this issue by saying, I need to know that the pilot flying the plane I'm traveling on as a passenger is rested according to global norms. That is what is at stake here. The government has allowed IndiGo to continue to function, not meeting these safety norms, while other airlines did meet them. That's what the story is about. Sherbir.
Absolutely, Barkha. And I want, if I don't have a rested pilot, I expect the airline that I'm flying with to take it on the chin and cancel the flight. And I expect the pilot to not, who's in the commander who's in charge of the aircraft, both by by law and morally so to not fly the aircraft. And that's really what the bottom line out here is. IndiGo has profited on every single component of this. They are running flying schools. They have these cadet training programs. As in, we should not. I'm going to for a moment add to the element that we shouldn't forget their own yeoman service towards this so-called pilot shortage. They've created these circumstances whereby Indian pilots want to go. Leave aside the commercial argument of going and flying for an airline like Emirates, Etihad, or Qatar, but just look at a few professionals who are going to say, like Captain Thomas just did, that I don't want to do this at the cost of my health, and I don't want to do this at the cost of passenger safety. It's a professional duty. It's similar to the duty Barkha, a journalist, takes to protect their source, or a lawyer takes to defend somebody, irrespective of the charge against them. Passenger safety is that sacrosanct to the commander of the aircraft. And here we have ultimately created circumstances whereby a regulator is blessing a tantrum from an airline that's throwing toys out of the pram to saying, look, we can't do this. I want to keep some toys. I don't want to keep the others. And you know what? The entire pram can break. That's just unacceptable. I don't even know what that we needed to go a step beyond this conversation.
I have to take final comments. Captain Amit Singh, I'll start with you. I know you have to step off quickly, so I'll start with you. What next? What happens now? This whole idea that we'll stabilize by February, what happens after February?
See, safety cannot be compromised. I'll give you an example, simple example. In Europe, 2 months back, there was a survey of German pilots. More than 1,000 pilots, must be much more. 93% of them said we are fatigued and we have slept off in the cockpit. That is
wow.
A flight duty time limitation.
Slept off in the cockpit. Slept off in the cockpit.
Yeah, something they have flight duty time limitation, which is scientific in nature. Ours is not even scientific. Imagine the state of FTTL, and now you're rolling it back. So the risk is increasing. You can imagine how much risk is increasing. And people who do not have an idea of how safety management system works can very simply say everything is safe because safety is perceptual. You don't see anything wrong because you don't have understanding of how it works. So that is very easy. So ignorance is a bliss for them. So
yeah, but what next? Sherbir, what next? What happens after February? That's what's puzzling me. What happens after February?
I think, Barkha, if they couldn't figure it out after 18 months for 1st of November, and the period between June 2025, when it was sort of when fait accompli for phase 2 was clear, which was 1st November, as in we're looking at the same number of dates. So did we do this dress rehearsal because of their incompetence? And if they did so, they need to, then heads must roll. And I completely agree that nothing is going to come out of the DGCA inquiry because there are 4 people. They need to go. This needs to be done at a significantly larger and faster scale. And here we have everybody investigating themselves. So it's just, I honestly don't think there's anything that's really going to come out. We may be staring at February all over again with very little progress. And if there is progress in February, then heads must really roll, because today is 6th December to 1st February or 10th February or whatever magical date they want in February is still less than 1st July to 1st November. And
absolutely.
That's where it rests.
Captain Thomas, let me give you the closing word. What are you at the associations thinking? What are your options at this point? What have you conveyed to the minister? What have you conveyed to the government? You say criminals inside IndiGo. You say you use the word gundas in your meetings with the DGCA. What is the response that you received? And what is it that you are planning or thinking in the association? What is your next step?
See, we are worried what will happen tomorrow, because forget February. Now, if you claim that this entire FDTL car is that caused this entire problem, the DGCA has reversed not just the car, they have reversed everything. They have allowed sick people to do checks. They have given 5 or 10 dispensations to DGCA, which they are not even, and to IndiGo, which they are not even qualified to give. My question is, if this was the issue, now that the DGCA has rolled back everything, shouldn't the operations be normal by this afternoon? How come you are saying that you will take 10 more days? The CEO is saying that, and you need time up to February 20. Are you going to make passengers fly the airplane? So we want accountability. We want arrest. I just using the term loosely, and in the presence of Sherbir, he'd be more, adept at telling what as a common pilot that we are saying is that we want heads to roll. We want some arrest. We want somebody to be made an example of, so that this does not repeat itself. Somebody should.
And when you say there should be arrests, can you elaborate on that?
There are management pilots, rostering in charges. These are the people taking the calls and making these other line pilots work at the risk of threats. IndiGo has terminated. See, every IndiGo pilot, almost every IndiGo pilot is in touch with us on a daily basis. There have been terminations for even just raising a voice, raising fatigue reports. The government of India, DGCA, came out with a rule saying that if you're fatigued, please write it down. The moment the pilots write it down, a software with this rostering assistant analyze it without any qualification and tell the pilot that you are not fatigued, we are marking you sick, therefore there's a loss of pay. Who is the rostering assistant? Which is the software? And more importantly, today, I don't know. My pilots don't know what rule to follow. Should I do 6 landings at night, or should I do, Guwahati FIR? It's not easy flying in India. It might appear to be, but as a pilot of 31 years, I'm slightly junior to Captain Amit Singh, but I'm telling you, it is not a joke. This domestic flying is very, very challenging.
Well, I will say that I think people in general need to understand what's at stake. What we should be asking the government is, one, how have you created a policy exceptionalism for one private entity? Why? What does that company have? Is the company misusing its monopoly? Is the company misusing its domination of the sector? Is the government unable to withstand the scenes of chaos at the airport? Is that the problem? Two, the public needs to understand that this is a safety issue. And I will again say, this is a year when the country has been scarred by a crash. Do we want to step on a plane where the pilots are not rested as per global norms? I think we need to ask a lot more tough questions here. It simply does not pass the smell test. It does not pass the common sense benchmark by which we have to understand what's happening here. And once again, other than IndiGo, the other airlines did implement these norms. So they are doable. It is that IndiGo wants to run a so-called lean machine for bigger profits. As Sherbir said, great. If you can follow safety norms and make a big profit, more power to you. Nobody's going to object to your profit, but you cannot compromise on safety. And that's exactly what has happened right now with the blessings of the aviation regulator and the government of India. Shocking. There is no other word for it. We thank you, Captain Thomas Sherbir, for shining a light on this issue earlier to Captain Amit Singh, and we will keep following this issue right here at the Mojo Story. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you soon.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.